Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty watching the stars through the main viewport when the first emergency transmission crackled through the communication system. The voice of Colony Administrator Karen Bell from New Texas Station came through broken and desperate. "This is New Texas calling any Earth. Forces, please respond. We are under attack, but it's not what we expected. The aliens, they're not using weapons. They're using some kind of yellow dust, and everyone is sneezing and can't stop, and people are falling down everywhere. Please help us." Jake grabbed the communication console and spoke quickly into the microphone. "New Texas, this is Commander Harrison on the UES Liberty. What exactly are you seeing out there?" The response came back filled with the sound of people coughing and sneezing in the background. "Commander, the Valtari ships appeared about 2 hours ago, and instead of firing lasers or missiles, they dropped these huge containers that exploded in the air and released clouds of yellow powder, and now everyone is having terrible allergic reactions, and most people can't even stand up anymore." Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her medical station with wide eyes. "Commander, I'm getting similar reports from 6 other colonies in this sector, and they're all describing the same symptoms." Jake turned to face his medical officer. "What kind of symptoms, Amy?" Amy checked her tablet and read the incoming reports. "Severe sneezing fits that last for hours, runny noses so bad people can't breathe, through them swollen eyes that won't stop watering, and some people are having trouble breathing because their throats are closing up." Chief Engineer Pete Collins walked over from his station shaking his head. "I've been monitoring the communications from all the affected colonies, and this is definitely coordinated. The Valtari hit 7 different settlements at exactly the same time with these pollen bombs." Jake stared at the star chart showing the locations of the attacked colonies. "Pollen bombs, that's what we're calling them now." Pete nodded. "That's what it looks like, sir. The chemical analysis from New Texas shows it's some kind of concentrated plant material designed to trigger massive allergic reactions in most known species." Amy was reading more reports as they came in. "Commander, the Centauri medical station is reporting that the alien refugees there are completely helpless. They can't even move because the sneezing fits are so severe." Jake walked over to the main communication array. "Get me Admiral Davis at Earth Command immediately." The communication officer worked quickly, and within minutes the stern face of Admiral Ryan Davis appeared on the main screen. "Commander Harrison, I'm getting reports of some kind of biological attack. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir. The Valtari have hit 7 colonies with what appears to be weaponized pollen that triggers severe allergic reactions in most species. The alien populations are completely incapacitated." Admiral Davis frowned. "What about the human colonists?" Jake looked at Amy, who checked her reports again. "Sir, the humans are definitely affected, but the reports suggest they're recovering faster than the other species. Some humans are already back on their feet after just a few hours." The Admiral's expression changed. "Interesting. The Valtari spent years studying our biology before this invasion. They must have thought this would disable us completely." Pete stepped forward. "Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to analyze the attack pattern and the pollen composition. We might be able to figure out what they're planning next." "Granted, Chief Collins. I want a full report in 4 hours." Amy was monitoring more incoming transmissions. "Admiral, I'm getting reports from the medical teams on the affected colonies, and they're saying the human recovery rate is much faster than expected." Jake leaned against his command chair. "How much faster, Amy?" "The aliens are still completely helpless after 6 hours. But humans who were initially disabled are starting to function normally again. Most are still sneezing and have runny noses, but they can walk and work." Admiral Davis looked thoughtful. "Commander, I want you to take the Liberty to New Texas and provide medical assistance to the colonists, but more importantly, I want you to study how the humans are recovering." "Understood, sir." The Admiral's image disappeared, and Jake turned to his crew. "Amy, I want you to prepare medical supplies for 7 colony populations. And Pete, I need you to figure out everything you can about these pollen weapons." Amy was already working at her station. "Commander, I'm requesting emergency shipments of antihistamines, nasal decongestants, and tissues. Lots and lots of tissues." Pete laughed, despite the seriousness of the situation. "Tissues are our new military hardware." Jake smiled grimly. Whatever works, Chief. The Liberty changed course for New Texas, and as they traveled, Amy continued monitoring the medical reports from the affected colonies. Commander, I'm seeing something interesting in the recovery patterns. What is it, Amy? The humans who suffer from seasonal allergies back on Earth seem to be recovering even faster than the others. It's like their bodies already know how to deal with this kind of attack. Pete looked up from his analysis station. That actually makes sense, Commander. Humans have been dealing with plant pollens for thousands of years. Our immune systems have evolved to handle allergens. Jake nodded slowly. So the Veltari picked the wrong species to attack with biological weapons. It looks that way, sir, Amy replied. The other species in the galaxy don't have seasonal allergies like humans. Do they never developed resistance to this kind of attack? As the Liberty approached New Texas, Jake could see the Veltari ships in the distance. They were large and sleek with strange bulges along their sides that must have contained the pollen bombs. Amy, open a channel to the colony. Channel open, sir. New Texas, this is Commander Harrison on the UES Liberty. We're here to provide medical assistance. Karenbel's voice came through much clearer now. Commander, thank goodness you're here. Most of our people are feeling better, but we still need help with the alien refugees and we're running low on tissues. Jake almost smiled at that. Understood, New Texas. We have medical supplies, and yes, we brought tissues as the Liberty moved into orbit around New Texas. Pete finished his initial analysis. Commander, I've got preliminary results on the pollen composition. Let's hear it, Chief. It's definitely weaponized plant material, but it's designed to overwhelm the immune systems of most known species. The Veltari must have assumed it would work the same way on humans. Amy looked up from her medical readings. But human immune systems are different because we've been exposed to natural allergens for so long. Jake watched the Veltari ships through the viewport. Chief, how long before the human colonists are completely recovered? Based on the current recovery rates, I'd say most humans will be functioning normally within 24 hours, and the aliens, they'll be helpless for days, maybe weeks. Jake realized the implications. So the Veltari have accidentally given us a huge advantage. Amy nodded. While they're waiting for their pollen attack to work, we'll be the only ones capable of fighting back as the Liberty prepared to beam down medical supplies. Jake couldn't help but think about the irony. The Veltari had spent years planning this invasion, and their secret weapon was defeated by humanity's long history of hay fever and seasonal allergies. Back on Earth, civilian administrator Lisa Martinez stood in the Emergency Operations Center watching news feeds from around the planet as reports of the alien pollen attacks spread across all communication networks. The reaction was unlike anything she had ever seen during a crisis. Ma'am, we're getting reports from major cities that people are rushing to stores to buy tissues, antihistamines and nasal sprays, reported her assistant, Tony Adams, who was monitoring civilian response patterns. Lisa looked at the screens showing long lines outside pharmacies and grocery stores. Tony, are people panicking? Not exactly, ma'am. It's more like they're treating this as the world's strangest shopping emergency. Some news reporters are calling it the Great Tissue Run of 2387. On the main screen, Lisa watched a news reporter standing outside a pharmacy in New York where people were wheeling out shopping carts filled with boxes of tissues. The reporter was trying to interview customers, but many of them were laughing. This is probably the weirdest alien invasion ever, said one customer who was loading tissue boxes into his car. My wife sent me out to buy every antihistamine in the city because she says if aliens are attacking with pollen, we're going to be ready. Lisa turned to her communications officer. Get me Captain Steve Brooks. He should be preparing the relief mission to the outer colonies. Captain Steve Brooks appeared on the communication screen from the cargo ship UES Mercy. Behind him, Lisa could see crew members loading supplies into the cargo hold. Lisa, we're loading medical supplies as fast as we can, but I have to tell you, this is the strangest military operation I've ever been part of. What do you mean, Steve? We're loading our cargo holds with millions of boxes of tissues, cases of allergy medicine, and enough nasal spray to supply a small planet, and my crew keeps making jokes about fighting aliens with Kleenex. Lisa smiled despite the serious situation. How long until you can depart? 6 hours. We're taking on emergency supplies from 12 different Earth facilities and every pharmacy chain has donated their entire stock of allergy medication. While Captain Brooks prepared his relief mission, Dr. Kate Thompson was working in her xenobiology laboratory analyzing samples of the Veltari pollen that had been transmitted from the attacked colonies. Her research assistant Bill Wilson helped her run tests on the strange yellow substance. Dr. Thompson, these results are fascinating, Bill said, looking at his computer screen. The pollen is definitely designed to trigger massive allergic reactions, but it's specifically tailored to affect non-human species. Kate examined the molecular structure of the pollen on her main display. Bill, look at these protein chains. They're designed to overwhelm immune systems that have never encountered plant allergens before. So the Veltari assumed that all species would react the same way. Exactly, but humans have been exposed to natural plant pollens for millions of years. Our immune systems have developed specific responses to deal with these kinds of proteins. Bill pulled up comparative data from the colony reports. Dr. Thompson, look at this. The humans on the attacked colonies are showing classic seasonal allergy symptoms, but they're recovering much faster than any other species. Kate studied the medical data carefully. It's like the Veltari accidentally chose the one biological weapon that humans are naturally resistant to. Meanwhile, Captain Steve Brooks and his crew were discovering something interesting during their journey to the outer colonies. Chief Medical Officer Nancy Green was analyzing the crew's reactions to simulated pollen exposure. Captain, I've been running tests on our crew using samples of the Veltari pollen and the results are remarkable. What kind of results, Nancy? Crew members who suffer from hay fever back on Earth show almost complete resistance to the alien pollen after just 12 hours of exposure. Their immune systems adapt incredibly quickly. Steve walked over to the medical bay where Nancy was conducting her tests. So people who sneeze every spring are actually better prepared for alien biological warfare. That's exactly right, Captain. The crew members with the worst seasonal allergies are showing the fastest recovery times. Engineer Mark Davis looked up from his console. Captain, that gives me an idea. What if we could use Earth's natural pollens as a weapon against the Veltari? Steve turned to face his engineer. What do you mean, Mark? Well, if human pollens cause us minor allergic reactions, imagine what they might do to aliens who have never been exposed to them before. Nancy nodded enthusiastically. Mark, that's brilliant. Earth plants produce some of the most potent allergens in the known galaxy. Ragweed pollen alone could potentially disable most alien species. Steve thought about the implications. So while the Veltari are waiting for their pollen bombs to work, we could be preparing our own biological weapons using simple Earth plants. The Use Mercy continued toward the outer colonies, and Steve's crew began analyzing Earth's potential as a source of biological weapons. They discovered that common plants like goldenrod pine trees and grass produce pollens that could be far more effective against alien species than any conventional weapon. Back on Earth, Lisa Martinez was coordinating the global response when she received an urgent message from the Agricultural Department. Dr. Danny White appeared on her communication screen from the main agricultural research facility. Lisa, we've been analyzing the potential of Earth plants as defensive weapons, and the results are incredible. What did you find, Danny? Common Earth plants produce pollens that could be devastating to most alien species. We could literally turn our farms and forests into weapons manufacturing facilities. Lisa leaned forward with interest. How quickly could we produce these biological weapons? We could start harvesting concentrated pollens immediately every spring when people complain about hay fever. We're actually surrounded by some of the most potent biological weapons in the galaxy. While Danny explained the agricultural possibilities, Tony Adams interrupted with an update from the outer colonies. Ma'am, we're getting reports that the human colonists are almost completely recovered from the pollen attacks, but the alien refugees are still helpless. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing the affected colonies. How long until Captain Brooks arrives with supplies? 4 hours, ma'am, but based on the recovery rates, the humans might not need medical assistance by the time he gets there. What about the alien populations? They'll need extensive medical support for days or possibly weeks. Lisa realized the strategic implications of the situation. Tony, the Veltari probably assumed their pollen weapons would disable us for weeks, giving them time to occupy our territories. But instead, they've accidentally given us a huge tactical advantage. Tony replied. Dr. Kate Thompson contacted Lisa from her laboratory with additional findings. Lisa, I've completed my analysis of the Veltari pollen, and I have good news and bad news. Give me the bad news first, Kate. The bad news is that this pollen is just the first wave. The molecular structure suggests they have much more concentrated versions that could potentially overwhelm even human resistance. And the good news is that we now understand exactly how their biological weapons work, and we can develop countermeasures using Earth's own plant life. Lisa looked at the Global Response Coordination Board, where reports were coming in from every continent. Kate, how long do we have before the Veltari realize their first attack didn't work? Based on their probable assumptions about recovery times, I'd estimate we have 24 to 48 hours before they launch their second wave. Then we better make sure we're ready with our own biological weapons. Lisa replied as she began coordinating Earth's transformation from a planet of hay fever sufferers to a biological weapons manufacturing center. Admiral Ryan Davis stood in the war room at Earth Command studying intelligence reports when Major Ashley Clark entered with urgent news about Veltari movements near the Outer Rim territories. Admiral, our reconnaissance drones have detected massive Veltari fleet movements. They're preparing for a second wave attack, and this time they're bringing much larger Pollen deployment systems. Ryan examined the tactical displays showing dozens of alien ships gathering in formation. How much larger, Ashley? Sir, the new deployment systems are 10 times the size of what they used in the first attack. Our analysts believe they're planning to release concentrated pollen bombs that could overwhelm even human resistance. Ryan walked over to the main strategic display. How long do we have before they reach our territory? 72 hours, sir, but Admiral, I think we might have found a way to turn this situation to our advantage. Ashley activated a holographic display showing the results of biological warfare tests that had been conducted over the past 2 days. Sir, we've been testing Earth pollens on captured Veltari equipment, and the results are extraordinary. Show me what you found. Admiral, a small amount of ragweed pollen completely disabled a Veltari atmospheric processor in under 30 minutes. Common pine pollen caused their air filtration systems to fail, and goldenrod extract made their biosensors completely useless. Ryan studied the test results carefully. So, Earth plants are toxic to Veltari technology. Not just toxic, sir, they're completely incompatible. The Veltari evolved on a planet with very simple plant life. They've never encountered the complex allergens that Earth plants produce. While Ashley briefed the Admiral, civilian botanist Danny White was working with agricultural experts at the main research facility to weaponize common Earth plants. His assistant Carol Mitchell helped him develop concentrated pollen grenades, using materials that could be found in any suburban backyard. Carol, these preliminary tests show that we can create effective biological weapons using pine tree pollen, grass seeds, and even dandelion fluff. Carol looked at the test results on her computer screen. Danny, this is incredible. We're literally turning yard waste into military weapons. The beauty of it is that these materials are completely harmless to humans. We've been exposed to them our entire evolutionary history, but they could be devastating to alien species. Danny activated a demonstration device that looked like a simple garden sprayer. Watch this, Carol. We load this sprayer with concentrated ragweed extract, and when we activate it, the pollen cloud spreads over a 50-meter area. And that would affect Veltari soldiers. How? Based on our tests with their captured equipment, they would be completely incapacitated within minutes, unable to breathe or see, and their technology would start failing. Meanwhile, Major Ashley Clark was meeting with her Special Forces team to discuss the tactical implications of their biological warfare discoveries. Sergeant Tim Johnson and Corporal Lisa Brown were examining the new pollen-based weapons that had been developed. Major, these pollen grenades look like something my kids would make for a science project, Tim said, holding up a device that resembled a large seed pod. That's the point, Tim. The simpler the better. These weapons don't require any advanced technology. Just compressed earth plant materials. Lisa activated one of the test grenades in a sealed chamber and watched as yellow dust filled the air. "Ma'am, how effective are these against Veltari armor?" "Lisa, their armor is designed to protect against energy weapons and projectiles, but it has no defense against microscopic pollen particles. The allergens can penetrate any air filtration system. They have." Tim looked at the tactical manual that had been hastily written for biological warfare. "So we're going to fight an advanced alien army with hay fever." "Exactly, Tim, and the best part is that we can manufacture these weapons anywhere on Earth. Every farm, every garden center, every park is now a potential weapons factory back at Earth." Command Admiral Ryan Davis was receiving reports from Captain Steve Brooks, who had reached the outer colonies and was witnessing the aftermath of the first pollen attacks. "Admiral, the situation here is unlike anything I've ever seen. The human colonists are completely recovered and back to normal activities, but the alien refugees are still helpless." "What's the current status of Veltari forces in that area, Steve?" "Sir, they're maintaining their positions, but they seem confused by how quickly the humans recovered. Their ships are just sitting there as if they're waiting for something." Ryan realized the tactical opportunity. "Steve, the Veltari are probably waiting for their pollen weapons to completely disable our colonies before they move in to occupy them. But instead, the humans are fine and ready to fight back." "Exactly, and we're going to give them the tools to do it." Admiral Davis contacted the agricultural research facility where Danny White was coordinating the mass production of biological weapons. "Danny, how quickly can we produce enough pollen weapons to supply our outer colonies?" "Admiral, we can start shipping concentrated allergen weapons within 12 hours. Every agricultural facility on Earth is being converted to produce these materials." "What about delivery systems?" "Sir, we're using modified crop dusting equipment and simple handheld dispensers. The technology is so basic that colonists can manufacture their own weapons using local Earth plants while the Earth forces prepare their." Biological counterattack reporter Jenny Adams was documenting the strange transformation of human society. She interviewed civilians who were volunteering to help produce the new weapons. "This is probably the weirdest war preparation in human history," said Farmer Joe Miller as he loaded ragweed pollen into military containers. "Yesterday I was complaining about hay fever, and today I'm manufacturing biological weapons in my barn." Another volunteer, Helen Carter, was separating pine pollen from tree branches. "My allergies have been terrible every spring for 20 years, but now I find out that the same stuff that makes me sneeze could save humanity from alien invasion." Jenny interviewed Dr. Kate Thompson, who was overseeing the scientific aspects of the biological weapons program. "Dr. Thompson, how did humanity accidentally become the most prepared species for this type of warfare?" "Jenny, it's ironic that our seasonal allergies, which millions of people consider a minor annoyance, have actually given us immunity to the Veltari's primary weapon and provided us with the knowledge to create effective countermeasures. So Earth's hay fever season is actually a form of military training." "In a sense, yes. Every spring when people suffer through pollen allergies, they're building resistance to biological attacks and learning to function despite allergen exposure." As the 72-hour deadline approached, Admiral Davis coordinated the deployment of Earth's biological weapons to the outer colonies. Transport ships loaded with pollen grenades and allergen dispensers headed toward Veltari-controlled space. "Ashley, are our forces ready for the second wave attack?" "Yes, sir. Every colony has been supplied with Earth-based biological weapons, and our troops are trained in allergen warfare tactics. And the Veltari, sir, based on intelligence reports, they have no idea what's coming. They're still assuming their pollen weapons will work, and they have no defense against Earth allergens." Ryan looked at the tactical display showing Veltari fleets approaching human territory. "Then let's show them what happens when you attack a species that's been dealing with hay fever for millions of years." The battle for the Centauri system began at dawn when Veltari ships appeared on the horizon ready to launch their second wave of concentrated pollen bombs, but they were met by something they never expected to see in space warfare. Captain Maria Santos commanded a squadron of converted agricultural vessels, each one loaded with compressed Earth allergens and modified crop dusting equipment. "All units, this is Captain Santos. Prepare to engage enemy forces with pollen torpedoes." she announced over the communication system as her ship, the converted farming vessel Earth's Bounty, moved into attack position. Her tactical officer Lieutenant Paul Ryan checked the weapon systems that had been hastily installed over the past 3 days. Captain, all pollen launchers are loaded and ready. We have ragweed extract in tubes 1 through 6, goldenrod concentrate in tubes 7 through 12, and pine pollen in the emergency reserves. Paul, this has to be the strangest weapons loadout in military history. Yes, ma'am, but according to the test results, these should be more effective against Veltari ships than our conventional weapons. The Veltari flagship began launching its own pollen bombs toward the human colonies, but Captain Santos ordered her squadron to intercept. All ships fire pollen torpedoes at the enemy deployment systems. The sight that followed became an instant legend in military history as farm equipment engaged alien warships in deadly combat. The Earth's Bounty fired its first salvo of ragweed torpedoes, which exploded against the Veltari ship's hull, creating massive yellow clouds that immediately began penetrating the alien vessel's air filtration systems. Captain, we're getting readings from the enemy ship. Their life support systems are failing and their weapons are powering down, Paul reported as he monitored the Veltari flagship. How is that possible, Paul? Ma'am, the ragweed extract is so concentrated that it's overwhelming their atmospheric processors. The aliens inside that ship are probably experiencing massive allergic reactions right now. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sergeant Tim Johnson and his infantry unit were preparing to defend the New Austin colony, using tactics that would have seemed ridiculous just a week earlier. His soldiers carried backpacks filled with compressed allergen dispensers and handfuls of raw earth plant materials. Listen up, everyone, the Veltari ground forces are going to be wearing their advanced armor, but remember that armor can't protect them from microscopic pollen particles, Tim announced to his squad. Private Andy Cooper raised his hand. Sergeant, are we really going to fight aliens by throwing handfuls of ragweed at them? That's exactly what we're going to do, Cooper, and according to the test results, it's going to be more effective than our plasma rifles. The Veltari soldiers began their assault on the colony expecting to face laser weapons and conventional military tactics, but instead they encountered something their training had never prepared them for. Tim's squad threw simple pollen grenades that exploded into clouds of yellow dust, and within minutes the advancing alien warriors began stumbling and falling. Sergeant, look at that, the aliens are taking off their helmets and gasping for air, observed Corporal Lisa Brown as she watched Veltari soldiers removing their protective gear. Lisa, their species has never encountered allergens like this. Their immune systems don't know how to handle Earth plant proteins. The battle became surreal as human soldiers wearing simple dust masks easily defeated Veltari warriors in advanced battle armor. The aliens, who had seemed so formidable with their sophisticated technology, were brought low by dandelion seeds carried on the wind. Reporter Jenny Adams, embedded with the ground forces, documented the bizarre nature of the conflict for her news broadcasts. This is Jenny Adams reporting from the front lines of what historians will probably call the strangest battle in human history, where Earth soldiers are defeating alien invaders using yard waste and allergy medicine, she interviewed Tim during a break in the fighting. Sergeant Johnson, can you describe what it's like to fight aliens with plant material? Jenny, it's incredible. These Veltari soldiers have weapons that could vaporize a tank, but they're completely helpless against a handful of grass pollen. How are your troops handling this unusual form of warfare? Ma'am, my soldiers are having trouble believing this is real. Yesterday, we were training with energy weapons, and today we're winning battles with stuff we used to rake up in our backyards. Back in space, Captain Maria Santos continued her assault on the Veltari fleet using agricultural equipment that had been converted into weapons of war. Her squadron of farming vessels engaged the alien ships in combat that looked like something from a comedy show rather than a serious military operation. Captain, the enemy fleet is retreating. Their ships are venting atmosphere and their formation is breaking apart, Paul reported as he watched the Veltari vessels attempt to withdraw from the battle. Paul, how many ships did we disable? Ma'am, we've completely incapacitated 12 Veltari vessels using nothing but concentrated Earth pollens. The remaining ships are fleeing the system. Maria looked at her tactical display showing the retreating alien fleet. Paul makes sure our crews document everything about this battle because nobody is going to believe that farm equipment defeated an advanced alien navy. On the surface, Tim's infantry unit was securing the colony after the Veltari ground forces had completely withdrawn. The alien soldiers had been forced to retreat when their respiratory systems couldn't handle exposure to Earth allergens. Sergeant, we're getting reports from other colonies that the Veltari are withdrawing from all human territories, Lisa informed him as she monitored military communications. Lisa, what's the status of our casualties? Sir, we have 0 combat casualties. Though Private Cooper is having a sneezing fit because he forgot to wear his dust mask during the Pollen grenade attack. Tim walked over to Andy, who was sitting against a wall sneezing continuously. Cooper, are you okay, Sergeant? I'm fine, it's just hay fever, but it's funny that the same pollen that barely affects me completely destroyed an entire Veltari platoon. The news of humanity's victory spread quickly through the colonies and back to Earth, where people celebrated the most unusual military triumph in galactic history. Dr. Kate Thompson analyzed the battle results from her laboratory and confirmed what everyone already suspected. The Veltari retreat proves that their species has no natural defense against Earth's complex allergens, she reported to Admiral Davis. What causes humans minor seasonal discomfort is completely devastating to aliens who evolved on planets with simple plant life. Admiral Davis reviewed the battle reports that seemed too strange to be real. Dr. Thompson, are you telling me that we defeated an advanced alien invasion force using materials that people can buy at any garden center? That's exactly right, Admiral. The Veltari spent years developing biological weapons to use against us. But they never considered that we might have biological weapons of our own as the Veltari fleet retreated from human space. Jenny Adams filed her final report from the battlefield. This is Jenny Adams reporting on humanity's victory in what will be remembered as the Great Hay Fever War, where Earth's agricultural resources proved more powerful than any conventional weapon. She interviewed civilians who had helped produce the biological weapons that saved the colonies. How does it feel to know that your seasonal allergies helped defeat an alien invasion? She asked Farmer Joe Miller. Jenny, it's the strangest thing I've ever experienced for 30 years. I've complained about ragweed pollen making me miserable every fall, and now I find out that same pollen just saved human civilization. The battle was over, but the implications of humanity's accidental biological warfare advantage would change military thinking throughout the galaxy forever. The war that began with sneezing ended with negotiation when Dr. Carol Mitchell arrived at the neutral station orbiting Kepler Prime to meet with Veltari representatives who were still recovering from their exposure to Earth allergens. She spoke fluent Veltari and had been chosen to mediate the peace talks that would determine the future of human-alien relations. Honored Speaker Zelanash, I understand your people wish to discuss terms for withdrawal from human territories, Carol said as she entered the meeting chamber where the Veltari delegation waited behind protective atmospheric barriers. Speaker Zelanash wheezed slightly as he responded through the translation device. Dr. Mitchell, your species has proven to possess biological capabilities that we did not anticipate. Our invasion force cannot function in environments contaminated with Earth plant materials. Honored Speaker, we are prepared to discuss peaceful resolution, but we need assurance that Veltari forces will not attempt future biological attacks against human colonies. Dr. Mitchell, we must confess that our understanding of biological warfare was incomplete. We assumed all species would react to allergens as we do, but humans appear to have natural immunity to these weapons. Carol nodded as she reviewed the peace treaty proposals on her tablet. Honored Speaker, humanity has lived with seasonal allergies for millions of years. What you used as weapons we experience as minor inconvenience every spring. The negotiations continued for 3 days as both species worked to understand how such a fundamental miscalculation had occurred. Speaker Zelanash explained that Veltari scientists had studied human biology but focused on military capabilities rather than everyday health issues. Dr. Mitchell, our researchers examined human weapons technology, transportation systems, and industrial capacity, but we never investigated why humans consume large quantities of nasal decongestants. During certain seasons, honored speaker, if your scientists had studied human medical records, they would have discovered that millions of humans take allergy medication every year and function normally despite constant exposure to plant pollens. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Commander Jake Harrison was reflecting on the ironic conclusion of the conflict while reviewing final battle reports aboard the UES Liberty. Lieutenant Amy Foster joined him in his ready room to discuss the medical implications of their victory. Commander, I've been analyzing the casualty reports from all the battles and the results are remarkable, Amy said as she handed him her medical summary. What did you find, Amy? Sir, human casualties were almost zero during the entire conflict. Our worst injury was Private Cooper's sneezing fit and a few cases of mild allergic reactions among soldiers who forgot to wear protective masks. Jake looked at the numbers with amazement. Amy, we fought an interstellar war and our biggest medical problem was hay fever. Commander, it's even stranger than that. The Veltari casualties were also minimal, because they retreated as soon as they realized their species couldn't function around Earth plants. Back at the peace negotiations, Doctor? Carol Mitchell was working out the details of the final agreement that would reshape military doctrine throughout the galaxy. The Veltari had agreed to withdraw from all human territories in exchange for detailed information about allergy treatments and protective equipment. Dr. Mitchell, we request access to human medical knowledge about allergen resistance so that our species can develop defensive measures against biological warfare, Speaker Zelenash said as they reviewed the treaty terms. Honored Speaker, we can provide medical research about antihistamines, respiratory protection and immune system treatments, but we must establish protocols to prevent future conflicts. Dr. Mitchell, we propose the creation of biological warfare treaties that prohibit the use of allergen weapons against species that have not developed natural resistance. Carol realized the broader implications of their agreement. Honored Speaker, this treaty could establish new principles for biological warfare throughout the galaxy. The final peace treaty was signed 3 weeks later and included provisions that surprised military leaders on both sides. Admiral Ryan Davis reviewed the agreement with his staff at Earth Command Headquarters. The Veltari have agreed to establish the Biological Warfare Prevention Council, and humans will share our allergy research with any species that requests it, Admiral Davis announced to his officers. Major Ashley Clark raised her hand. Admiral, does this mean we're going to become the galaxy's experts on allergen defense? That's exactly what it means, Ashley. Earth is establishing the Terran Allergen Defense Corps, and you're going to be the first commanding officer. Ashley looked surprised. Sir, we're creating a military branch dedicated to biological warfare using plant materials. Ashley, the galaxy has realized that Earth species have unique advantages in biological warfare, and other civilizations want to learn from our experience. The establishment of the Allergen Defense Corps led to the creation of specialized training facilities where soldiers learn to use Earth plants as defensive weapons. The motto of the new military branch became, "When aliens attack with biology, we respond with botany," and recruitment advertisements featured soldiers carrying backpacks full of ragweed extract instead of conventional weapons. Lieutenant Amy Foster was promoted to head the new medical division that studied allergen warfare and developed protective equipment for species that lacked natural resistance to Earth plants. Her research laboratory became the Center for Galactic Studies of Biological Defense. Dr. Foster were receiving requests from 12 different species that want to learn about antihistamine treatments and respiratory protection, her assistant reported during their weekly briefing. That's incredible. It seems like our experience with seasonal allergies has made Earth the Center for Biological Warfare Research. Captain Steve Brooks continued his supply missions to the outer colonies, but now instead of emergency medical supplies, he delivered training equipment for allergen warfare tactics. His cargo holds were filled with educational materials about Earth plants and defensive equipment for alien populations. This is probably the only time in military history that agricultural knowledge has become classified military intelligence, Steve commented to his crew as they loaded supplies for the Centauri Defense Training Facility. Dr. Kate Thompson established the Galactic Institute for Allergen Research, where scientists from dozens of species came to study Earth's unique biological warfare capabilities. Her research facility became famous throughout the galaxy as the place where seasonal allergies were transformed into strategic military advantages. The irony is remarkable, Kate explained to visiting researchers. Humans complained about hay fever for thousands of years, never realizing that their seasonal suffering was actually preparation for biological warfare. As the months passed, the effects of the Great Hay Fever War continued to influence galactic politics and military thinking. Reporter Jenny Adams documented the long-term consequences of humanity's unusual victory. 6 months after the conflict ended, Earth has become the galaxy's leading authority on biological defense, and human agricultural experts are now considered military consultants, she reported in her documentary about the war. The story concluded with Captain Steve Brooks making his final delivery to the outer colonies. Not emergency supplies this time, but regular shipments of tissues and allergy medication for the humans, who still suffered from seasonal allergies. The galaxy might be safe from biological warfare, but spring still brought sneezing season, and humanity had learned to always keep tissues handy just in case the next alien invasion involved something more challenging than pollen. Admiral Davis stood in his office looking at reports from the new Allergen Defense Corps and smiled at the transformation of human society. Who would have thought that runny noses and sneezing fits would become humanity's greatest military advantage, he said to himself as he signed orders establishing Earth as the galactic center for biological warfare research and seasonal allergy treatment.